This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
It's Golden Sense in full flight for the wire over flashback, and Golden Sense have won the Santa Ana Derby. Orb has won the Kentucky Derby. First of the day.
Will take charge is surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call.
And Animal Kingdom wins the Dubai World Cup.
Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to the Thursday edition of Racing Across America. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us. Coming up a little later on the show, we're going to be joined by John DeSilva, as we are every Thursday. John's going to take a little bit of a look at New York racing for this afternoon. We'll get some thoughts there, look back at the vagrancy from this past Saturday. We'll also, as we do, have been getting for the week, some thoughts on the Preakness from John, but also a look ahead at New York for the weekend. On Saturday, they have the Sheep's Head Bay down at Aqueduct. So a little New York racing talk, as well as tossing in some Preakness with John coming up about 10:15 or so. But a little past the bottom of the hour, we're going to be joined by Nick Hahn. Nick writes for Frank Vespe's TheRacingBiz.com, the racing website that does great coverage of racing in the Mid-Atlantic region. And Nick has been covering the controversy down in Virginia, and I just wanted to update folks on that because I know there are a lot of folks that enjoy betting on Colonial Downs about this time of year and into the summer months, as it is it's really part of the Maryland circuit. It's, Pimlico, Laurel, and then Colonial Downs gets cycled in almost as the third leg of the Maryland circuit. Colonial Downs, of course, over in Virginia, though, but that's where a lot of the Maryland horsemen go. And there's just been a controversy there between Colonial Downs and the horsemen. Now the Virginia Racing Association, their racing regulators have become involved over the past couple of weeks. And it's looking grim as far as racing at Colonial Downs this summer. And again, I think a lot of people enjoy playing it, so I just wanted to update folks on what that situation was like. And we'll get that again with Nick Hahn a little bit later on. Do want to remind people some of the events coming up at Capital OTB over the remainder of the month. Coming up on Friday tomorrow, the grand reopening of the Queensbury branch. So if you've been waiting for that, it happens tomorrow. On Saturday, a Showviver contest on CapitalOTB.com. There will also be a knockout challenge here at the Clubhouse Racebook on Saturday the 24th, a $100 knockout challenge on Belmont races 2 through 7. Coming up on Friday the 30th, another $100 knockout challenge on CapitalOTB.com. Saturday the 31st, a Showviver contest on the website, and the grand opening of the old Log-In new Easy Bet location. So there are some of the events. Also want to remind you, of course, and make your reservations early because Triple Crown is going to be on the line, and I'm sure I said it to one of our guests yesterday. The Triple Crown races, Derby, Preakness, and Belmont, not only big at Churchill, Pimlico, and Belmont Park, but they're big at the various racetracks and simulcast facilities around the country, including right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. I'm sure the place will be rocking with a Triple Crown on the line come Belmont Stakes Day. Make your reservations now. It'll be a $5 charge for the reservation, but with that you get admission. You get a $1 win bet on California Chrome. You get a photo of California Chrome, and you get a Belmont Stakes glass. So you can make your Belmont Stakes reservations. You can call right down here to the Clubhouse Racebook, area code 518-438-0127. Again, 438-0127. Make your reservations for Belmont Stakes Day. And don't forget, Bet 50, Get 50 continues this month as well. So if you don't yet have a Capital Bets wagering account, sign up. As soon as you sign up and bet $50 into your new Capital Bets wagering account, Capital OTB plops another $50 into the account. So some free money available. I touched on this yesterday. We had a little bit of break in the action, and I touched on the NTRA poll yesterday that comes out the beginning of every week. Wise Dan currently at the top of the general thoroughbred poll, but notable to me was California Chrome, now a unanimous selection among the NTRA voters as number 1 on the 3-year-old scene. Also notable, number 2 among the NTRA voters, Untappable, the 3-year-old filly. Danza 3rd, Ride on Curlin 4th, Wicked Strong 5th. And as I said, I had to send in my vote for the ESPN poll the other day, and I'm pretty similar in my top 5. I also have Tonalist in there at number 7. The NTRA has that one at number 8. I don't have Samrot on my list. That was kind of the last one to plop off, but now with the Danza situation, who knows? Maybe I'll move that one back on. They have opportunity and social inclusion. So I'm pretty much the same, and it looks like my difference is the NTRA poll has Samrot. I have Intense Holiday sitting at number 10 on my list. So point being, I think it seems like the pundits after the Triple Crown, first couple of legs of the Triple Crown, are starting to sort things out, and the class is becoming a little more defined, and it's becoming completely defined in the number 1 position. I think everybody is pretty high on California Chrome as clearly the leader of the class at this point. We'll see what happens in about 2.5 weeks. Speaking of California Chrome and favoritism, it was announced earlier this year that the gaming regulators out in Las Vegas gave the okay for casinos in Vegas to offer a future bet on the Horse of the Year. And California Chrome is now minus 125 favoritism for Horse of the Year. And it's funny, they have the line, and the line are all typically horse racing odds, 4-1, 5-1, and whatnot, until you get down to California Chrome, who's listed as minus 125, which is essentially a sports betting type of odds, but obviously indicates he is an overwhelming favorite in here. Not surprising, because clearly he's one race away from being a lock of Horse of the Year. A Triple Crown is virtually a lock on Horse of the Year. So that explains his favoritism. Give you some of the some idea of some of the other odds currently for Horse of the Year out in Vegas. Wise Dan is at 12-1. Will Take Charge, Game On Dude, Mucho Macho Man, all at 10-1. Kind of surprised Untappable is 14-1. I think she's up against it a little bit, being in the 3-year-old filly division, although if they do decide to step out and face the boys, that would move up her stock a little bit. But until they do that, the 14-1 to me seems a little short as far as the future price on Horse of the Year for a 3-year-old filly. But that just gives you a little bit of an idea. Again, that's a new wager out there in Vegas. California Chrome taking a lot of action. And as I say, understandably, in that he's one race away from really being a lock. I would find it hard to believe a Triple Crown winner could be surpassed for Horse of the Year. So a race in June could have it sewn up. But again, does have to get that done, obviously. Speaking of the Belmont Stakes and speaking of Vegas, the Vegas odds for the Belmont Stakes as recently as a couple of days ago. California Chrome, the 5-6 favorite out in Vegas. Then it's Wicked Strong and Danza at 8-1. Obviously, this was before the Danza news. As I say, this line was probably 3 days old. Commanding Curve, Tonalist at 10-1, as is Ride on Curlin. Social Inclusion, Samrot, Commissioner 20-1. Intense Holiday 22. Kid Cruise 40. Ring Weekend 40-1. So the two 40-1s, Kid Cruise and Ring Weekend, look a little bit interesting to me at the Vegas odds. But again, California Chrome, the overwhelming favorite. It's going to be interesting to see how these lines and how the pundits start to maybe shift or whatnot as we get closer to the Derby. More news comes out about horses are working, how California Chrome is taking to the track. He was out for a little jog on the track later, and I think we have some video of that when we talked to John De Silva. You can see California Chrome just got a little jog yesterday morning, a little feel for the track. Also, I didn't mention it when I was in yesterday specifically, but obviously there was the news about the nasal strips. That was a story briefly for a day or so, and there was a joint statement issued by the New York State Gaming Commission, the New York Racing Association, and the Jockey Club regarding the use of nasal strips. They did have New York State Gaming Commission Equine Medical Director Scott Palmer issued a statement in part of this where he said, I recommend that the stewards at the state-based thoroughbred racetracks discontinue their ban on equine nasal strips. And this is according to, again, the equine medical director for the New York State Gaming Commission. He goes on to say equine nasal strips do not enhance equine performance, nor do they pose a risk to equine health or safety, and as such do not need to be regulated. And again, this was not a state regulation. This was really just kind of a NYRA House rule that went back to the Terry Meeks day when he was in charge of NYRA. He is now in charge of the Jockeys Guild. He's even come out and said, you know, back when we put that House ban in, nasal strips were new. Now we've had years to take a look. And even Terry Meeks, who again, originally years ago put in the ban in NYRA, now says, you know, probably the time has come to make the change. And as I said earlier on the Handicappers Report, I linked on Equidaily to an ESPN report they had yesterday from Janine Edwards, who was at Belmont Park. It included a interview with Martin Panza, the racing director there, where he said, they sat back, they reviewed it and said, you know, this is, other racing jurisdictions have them. As noted, the equine medical director has come out and given it an okay. It was just time to change the rule. All of that said, I did want to once again bring up, we talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the Handicappers Report, but just in case this viewer wasn't watching, we got a viewer mail yesterday asking, in the future, how will a bettor know if a horse is wearing a nasal strip? Will the past performance providers say this? And, you know, given what California Chrome has done, does this enhance performance? And as such, shouldn't bettors know that? And Jeff Carl and I talked a little bit about it. And Jeff, of course, being a former trainer, reiterated the point and made it even further. But I heard Dave Granig on Racing Forum's Dave Granig on a radio show a couple of days ago, talking about just this idea of, you know, regulating nasal strips and how do bettors know. Well, there's just a lot of equipment out there bettors don't know. You don't know about a tongue tie. You don't, as Jeff Carl said, you don't know necessarily about the different types of bits horses wear, when they change the cup size on the blinkers. There are all kinds of equipment changes that are made. And you can supposedly make the argument, I'm for bettors having all the information they can have, and so you can make the argument that we should know all of these changes. But then you get into the practicality of the situation. How does that information get input and dispersed? So the point being, there's probably some things that are just as well that aren't added to the pile of information. I think nasal strips is probably one of them because, again, as the equine medical director says, it's not really a performance enhancer. It's just something that allows the horse to maybe breathe a little bit easier, is good for the lungs and whatnot. And so I understand what the emailer was asking. We got a viewer mail yesterday that asked that, and I understand. But, and I said earlier, when the nasal strips first came out, I'm virtually certain there was a little N notation in the Daily Racing Form and other past performance providers. And I think they just kind of decided it wasn't important enough information. It wasn't making that much of a difference. So, you know, that's my take on it. I get the point, but I don't think we're really missing that much if they don't notate the nasal strips. All right, we're going to head to the first break. But while we headed to the first break, there was a little promotional video on the internet that I wanted to bring up. It's our friend Barbara Livingston, and she's coming out with a new book, and I just wanted to show the promotional video just to alert you of it. You might remember Barbara Livingston's book, Old Friends, which were great photographs of retired thoroughbreds, big names that you might remember, or some names that maybe don't come right to the forefront, but once you saw them again, then you remembered the horse on the racetrack. And again, she had the great Old Friends book out a while ago, did Barbara Livingston. Well, now they've done a standard bred version. Barbara Livingston took the photographs. Ellen Harvey, who's with the Harness Racing Association, wrote the copy. And the book will come out, it's available June 25th. If you go to the Harness Racing Museum website, which is harnessmuseum.com, you can actually pre-order the book. And again, it's harnessmuseum.com. As we get closer to the release date, we'll have either Ellen or Barbara on. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But I just wanted to alert you to it. Barbara does such great work. About a little minute promotional video that's just about 2.5 minutes long or so. So as we go into the first break, we'll take a look at that. Again, the name of the book is Standard Bred Old Friends, Barbara Livingston and Ellen Harvey. Just give you a heads up on that, as it will come out June 25th, but you can pre-order now. When we come back from the break, it will be John DeSilva. We'll talk some New York racing, get his thoughts on the Preakness as well. All of that right after this.
The first old friend that I photographed was Nashua when he was a very old stallion at Spendthrift Farm, and I was a teenager, young girl. And there was something about the way that he picked up his head and looked so proudly, like the look of eagles. You couldn't believe what he's seen in his lifetime, what he's lived through, the people that have admired him, the races he won. And that amazing fire in his spirit seemed so much more than you'd ever find in a younger horse. And I was just enamored of that. Nostalgia obviously is a tangible, we all remember it, but some of these horses we haven't ever heard of, and what gives us the empathy for them? There's something about the fact that these creatures, which could so easily disappear, are still loved and admired and tended to by people that are doing it not for glory, not because the horse is necessarily useful or worth any money, but just out of sheer love. And I just think a love story is a love story, whether it's between person and person or person and horse. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, sweetheart. It is amazing, literally. You can just put a blog online about some horse that disappeared from the spotlight 20 years ago. Yeah, fantastic. But just people write to you and say, thank you. I remember I was there that day with so-and-so. I remember what happened with this. They just remember these moments. Between that and that mane, he's absolutely stunning. Perfect. Perfect. And then, brings them back to that time, which we all seem to remember our older times as being better ones. And we all just remember their times with fondness and with such great respect for what these animals did. The first great horse I saw was Albatross, who was a standard bred. And after that, Nia Tross, and Nia later sort of went with the family line. Despite the fact that almost every single one is an unmarked bay, they just are incredibly beautiful and each have their own individuality just as much as any thoroughbred would have. And meanwhile, it's easier to get them and put them in a strange situation for photos without them panicking and saying, I'm not enjoying this photo shoot. So now I found him. As fast as beautiful old legs will take him. To see an older horse in their 20s that is no longer useful, be covered with dapples, have the mane pulled correctly, just have people love them, is just so heartwarming to me. I never get tired of that. Really, really beautiful.
California Chrome has won the Preakness! And that elusive prize, the Triple Crown, awaits California Chrome in the Belmont Stakes.
The dream continues. The Triple Crown dream is still alive.
And the best place to be when it happens is the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. You can also be part of the action by visiting one of our Easy Bet or branch locations or bet online at capitalotbbet.com.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to capitalotv.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. capitalotv.com. Log on today.
On Preakness Day, no one brought you more insight, more analysis, and more information crucial to the professional horse player than OTB TV, with live coverage from Pimlico, including Pimlico track announcer Dave Rodman, HorsePlayerNow.com's Brian Nadow, and none other than California Chrome's exercise rider Willie Delgado, each with their own expert analysis and first-hand look at track conditions and early morning workouts. So for the very latest racing news and opinions, keep it right here on OTB TV.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the King of the Hill on June 14th. So sign up today, online at capitalotb.com or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Anthony Moreno. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by John DeSilva of RacingWithBruno.com. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How's everything?
Very good. Happy to have you on board. In a few minutes, we'll get some thoughts on the Preakness. We'll take a look back at last weekend at Aqueduct. We'll take a look forward at this weekend, last weekend at Belmont, and this weekend at Belmont. But before we do that, let's take a look at some of the races this afternoon and get some of your ideas for today at Belmont. You've got a few suggestions for us. We'll kick things off in race number 4 at Belmont, which is a state-bred maiden special weight event. Was scheduled for 6 furlongs on the turf. It's now off the turf this afternoon.
It was spiking off the turf, and somehow, someway, we need to beat the Bruce Brown juggernaut. I mean, the way he's been going right now, and he got trail in there, but we're going to go with the main track only, but we're not going to go with the favorite one, Wake Up Malibu. We're going to go with the other one, Rivetto. Now, this is a horse who made a career debut at Finger Lakes and finished well to be third, going 5 furlongs. Stretches out today to a 6 furlong distance, but one thing about Bond, he usually does pretty good, but he makes moves like this. So I'm sure that he will probably had Belmont all along. He just wanted to get a race on the horse's belt, especially going 5 furlongs, thinking that maybe he just needed a race under his belt just to get this horse ready to win on the Narrows circuit.
Yeah, we were on the Handicappers Report earlier, and Jeff Carroll was looking at Belmont for today, and he liked Rivetto as well. And so we'll hope that 8-1 morning line holds up. And I think off the Finger Lakes race, it probably will. But you may be right. That could have been a nice little tightener setting this horse up for this race in the book. And now he gets the surface he wants as well. So Rivetto in race number 4. Let's go out and look at race number 7 this afternoon. State-bred claiming event, 20 tags. These are 3-year-olds and up. They'll go the one-turn mile.
I mean, you got a heavy favorite, trained by David Jacobson here, and again, he can't win them all. He has to slope a little bit, and I'm going to go with Bound by Humor. I mean, yes, the horse ran for a claiming tag last time out, but I just think that with the conditions of the track today, I think it's going to work out pretty well. Wouldn't surprise if there's a couple of scratches, even though I do hoping that Box 1 will be okay, but I think the wet track will definitely help Bound by Humor today.
Yeah, and again, Jeff had a similar notion in that he was going against the Jacobson favorite entry. And, you look, Pure Attitude just ran a few days ago, claimed for 10,000, ran 4th that day, and Writing on the Wall, a dud back in March. So yeah, on the drop and with the Jacobson name, I think that explains the morning line favoritism. I think the betting public will be interested, but those are the kind of favorites it's worth taking a little bit of a shot against.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a small field. So maybe with a couple of scratches in the bottom, which could affect it a little bit at the end. But again, I still think it might get decent value no matter who's left in the race.
All right, let's take a look out at race 8 this afternoon. This one is an optional claimer. Claiming tag 62,500. Non-winners are 2 other than the condition. These are 3-year-olds and up. And again, this one's on the turf at this point anyway, still scheduled for the turf at a mile.
I mean, if it stays on the turf right now, I do like Brunt. I mean, this is a horse that came off the pace doing a season debut for Jimmy Jerkins, and Jerkins is one who normally likes to get his horses to run into shape. And so to win coming off the layoff it might be a pretty decent price here.
And yeah, you've got 5-1, and so that morning line holds up. That certainly becomes very, very attractive in there. And again, we're going to have to keep our eyes on the skies as well. Jeff Carroll earlier said he was looking at the Doppler radar, and it looks like there will be some more rain. So we will keep our fingers crossed that the two turf races that are still on do stay on. John, let's take a look back now at last weekend at Aqueduct. We have a short field in the vagrancy last Saturday, but I wanted to show it because Kauai Katie, who went off at the 45 cent to the dollar favorite, ran a very disappointing fourth. Subsequently, Pletcher came out and said may have had a case of the thumps, which is an electrolyte imbalance. So that gives an explanation for Kauai Katie, who earlier in the career had shown so much promise. The last few races, maybe not so much show. We'll have to see how this one does come back. But Kauai Katie will be the number 4 horse. And again, she'll finish last in the field of 4 with perhaps a legitimate excuse in here. The winner will be the number 2, Mary Meadow. Couple of starts back, won an optional claimer, then went down and tried the Barbara Fritchie and ran 4th. But this is another horse that in the career has shown a little bit of promise. Short field, but again, as we're watching the stretch run here, it will be the number 2, Mary Meadow, getting it done. What were your thoughts in the vagrancy?
Well, first of all, let's give Rajiv a lot of credit for giving Mary Meadow a great ride. I mean, after Kauai Katie basically not showing up in 5-Star Mama, not getting really deep razor breaks and being alone on the lead, it's like having to deal with Gin of all trades. Rajiv just bided his time, just waited for the right moment, took over when he needed to get the job done here. Kauai Katie, I mean, he got the thump situation and all that, but you just have to wonder, how much does she have left? Even though she's still a young horse in terms of horse racing, she has not really fulfilled the potential and the promise that she showed early in her career. And you just have to wonder, will they give her one more shot, or maybe is it about time to retire her?
Yeah, as I say, you look at the early part of the career and you're seeing a lot of ones in there, and then the last few races, you go back 4 races, 4th last time, 2nd just before that in the Distaff at Aqueduct, so that wasn't bad, behind the very talented La Verdad, but then a 6th and a 3rd place finish going back into spring and summer last year. So far this year, the 2nd to La Verdad, and then the 4th in that last start, so we'll see what happens with her coming up next. Speaking of that, let me ask you, on kind of a similar note, a horse from the Pletcher barn heading to the sidelines, Danza, comes out of the workout. They said the workout's okay, didn't like the way the horse looked the next day, and then goes to Florida for diagnostics. That to me says, now let's wait and see if Danza comes back to the track or not.
When Tom Pletcher makes a move like that, obviously there's more than what he's telling us right now. To me, I mean, this is a horse that definitely had issues, or you would have had the lack of seasoning this horse had in the first place. So you probably knows all along what this horse has, and you probably, whatever this horse had in place, probably start flaring up again. He figures, okay, if I'm not going to make the Belmont, why push it? Maybe get this taken care of, because right now, I mean, let's face it, California Chrome is a top 3-year-old. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Even if the horse loses the Belmont, he's going to be the top 3. It's going to take a lot to beat this horse. And for a horse like Danza, why push if you don't have to? And if this horse does have issues, which it doesn't surprise me, then why risk it? Because let's face it, at most racetracks, this year especially, we've had like speed favoring hardened tracks. And if this horse Danza has this like a leg issue, for example, which I'm not saying he does, but in case he does, why risk it by running in these type of races? So let's give him time to heal up, get well, get stronger, get bigger, and hopefully he won't have these problems in the future.
Yeah, and it's, as I say, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him going forward as well. All right, let's. That was last weekend. Let's take a look forward at this Saturday down at Belmont. It will be the Sheepshead Bay Grade 2 event, $200,000 purse, 1 3/8 on the inner turf down there. There are some main track only entrants in the field, so it's going to be shortened to, looks like a field of 7, I guess, because we have a field of 10, and again, there are 3 of them are MTOs. I had called for video of Tannery winning last year, thinking that one would be in. Don't see that one in the entries here, but I think there are some interesting horses. Caroline Thomas from Barclay Tag is a horse I always find interesting. Viva Raffaella from Todd Pletcher. Repost from Bill Mott. Again, it may be a little bit more of a compact field than we were anticipating, but I think it's a fun edition of the Sheep's Head Bay. What are your thoughts?
It definitely is. I mean, we definitely hoping the turf course will be nice and firm. Coming in there, we just had to see what happens with the rain that New York is going to be getting and how much rain it gets at that point. A horse that, to me, is intriguing is the Baco. And this is a horse, yes, he was a little bit of a price last time out at Keeneland, but did run pretty well to be third, and then Jenny Wiley, in the grade 1. I mean, I'm looking at this race here. Yes, it's short. To me, a horse like a Viva Raffaella has been very disappointing. I thought she would show more consistency, would have been better, but I think with the race was set up, I mean, a Baco at a price I would definitely like a lot.
Yeah, and it's Shug McGahee, and over the past couple of seasons, certainly he has come to the forefront with his turf runners, so that's a bonus as well. All right, John, now let's, as noted before, want to get some of your thoughts on this past weekend, the Preakness and Triple Crown thoughts. While we talk, I pulled up some video yesterday that was shot by Naira of California Chrome jogging at Belmont yesterday. He went out and got his first feel of the track, just a little jog around the track to get his feet wet on the Belmont surface. So we'll watch that while we talk. But John, first and foremost, just give us your thoughts of the results of the Preakness.
I love the way Victor Espinosa went out there and took charge, because you see the horse break well, and as it coming down the stretch for the first time, you see Espinosa look over, see what social inclusion is, and he knows as a veteran jockey, this is a lightly raced horse who hasn't had much adversity and hasn't had to do many things differently. So he goes out there, brushes, if you want to call it that, social inclusion, make sure he doesn't rush up to gain the lead, gets to relax, and make that horse really get into a position he's not used to, going into the clubhouse turn. And that's the thing that people talk about. Yes, social inclusion was fast. Yes, he's got all this talent in the world, and people expected him to be out there on the lead, but that's lightly raced. That means you haven't had to deal with adversity. And in a race like that, more often than not, you will deal with the adversity, and Espinosa made sure that happened. So I love the way he did that, and then he just kept California Chrome in the right spot. He's push button, and he asked him to go, he went. Now, coming into Belmont Stakes, this horse is going to get pushed. He's going to have to deal with a lot, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he handles Belmont Park and how he handles the media scrutiny between now and then. I mean, one advantage is Victor Espinosa rides. You look at some of the other people coming into the Belmont Stakes, they had jockeys who didn't exactly ride and took a little time off and got to enjoy the wares of being a Preakness winner, a Derby winner, or both. Espinosa's not going to do that. He's going to go out there and ride. He's not going to let it get to his mind. And I think Sherman is going to be the same exact way. So now the question is the talent coming up against him, going against California Chrome? I'll tell you, it's going to be tough because you got some very nice horses in here coming back, whether it's Tonalist, or whether it's going to be a commissioner who I call Drosselmeyer Jr., who, didn't Drosselmeyer run second in Peter Pan before he won the Belmont?
Yeah. And let me ask you this. Right on Curlin, who ran second, I liked him underneath in the exact. I had him in third in my picks. I like Dynamic Impact second, Right on Curlin third. But one of the things I've read this week is with the conversation about changing up the dates in the Triple Crown, it said if California Chrome or Right on Curlin gets that done, maybe there won't be so much of an outcry because they'll have run in all 3 of the events. But if any other horse wins, is that a groundswell you think could take hold?
No. Plain and simple, no, because You might have Tom Chuckus making those comments, but Frank Stronach, he is still a man who believes in the history of racing. And as long as Frank Stronach is alive, there's no way in the world that's going to happen. He would have to be senile and taken out of power for any change to happen with the Preakness. And I don't see Nauer making any changes either. I mean, unfortunately, it's the mentality of the trainer. They're the ones who don't want to do this. Because all of a sudden, 2 weeks is just too much, just too fast. Because there's no incentive for them to do it. When there used to be a point system and there used to be a bonus to running all 3 legs, people would run. Maybe that's what's needed to get horses to come back and run in the Preakness. Have a bonus, have a point incentive. There's enough money out there for that to happen. You just have to find a major sponsor.
Yeah, that's interesting because that did change the dynamic a little bit, although there were negatives to that too, and the people said, well, gee, maybe horses are running all 3 races now that shouldn't run, but they're chasing the bonus. So there's the yin and the yang at work there with all of those thoughts. Any other thoughts from Preakness weekend?
I was very impressed, with the way Maryland handled everything in the first place, because they put out a great card. And you talk about what the owners said with Churchill could learn something. He was right, because Churchill can learn because they put out a great card. I mean, it was unfortunate what happened with the Lady Legends race, with the jockey standing up. That was so early to the wire, and basically I just think she was just tired, because when you got someone who hasn't ridden in a year and basically retired in 1996, and let's be frank here, the only reason she's in the race is because her husband is second in command for Stronach Group. How great of a jockey was she in the first place? So she had to be tired, and it was unfortunate, even though it's almost karma, because here's Andrea Seefeld who won the race, and who does she work for all these years? Dickie Small, who just passed away recently.
Yeah, and again, that was an unfortunate event, but it had a kind of another story angle to the whole thing, which was a fun story to begin with. That whole event was fun, this being the last year, and now they've got that Hall of Fame Jockey Challenge. That was fun, too. So I agree. They put on a great weekend, and finally just rolling that into New York. What do you think is going to happen Belmont weekend up at Belmont Park? I'm anticipating now Triple Crown on the line and that crazy stakes card they have. I think they're going to jam the place.
Oh, it's definitely going to be over 100,000 as long as there's no rain. The card, I mean, from top to bottom is going to be incredible. And you need to get out there early, folks, because parking is insane. Paying for parking is going to be insane. Yes, the cost that's on the property right now will be moved. That always happens. But the 2 best races on the card, other than the Belmont, might be early in the card. Because if Untappable goes, if they get more than 6 horses, I'll be shocked. And then in the fifth, with Beholder and Princess of Silmar and Closed Hatches, that's not going to be a big field. So that probably means that both those races, because they're going to be small fields, will be early in the card. So people, show up early, because you're going to miss some great racing if you don't.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day. Looking forward to it, and we'll certainly talk a little bit more about it over the next couple of weeks. John, as always, we appreciate the visit. Good luck this afternoon. We'll talk to you next week.
You got it. Take care.
John DeSilva of RacingWithBruno.com. And I think on the line now we do have Nick Hahn, writer for TheRacingBiz.com. Good morning, Nick.
Hey, good morning.
Happy to have you on board. And I teased at the top of the show, and I said I wanted to invite you on because I think a lot of our viewers enjoy betting Colonial Downs during the spring and summer. It's kind of a unique meet. It also makes kind of the third leg of maybe a Maryland circuit, a Maryland-Virginia circuit. But over the past couple of months, it's been in the news, a lot of controversy, and things are looking dicier and dicier for Colonial Downs this summer. So I just wanted to give the viewers an update. And Nick, before we get into this year, why don't you just give us a little background? What's been the standard operating procedure as far as Colonial Downs and their season in the past couple of years?
Well, it's funny that you say that because Colonial Downs has enjoyed, I think, a great reputation out of state. It's a very popular track. Its emphasis has been on turf racing. It conducts some 90% of its racing on the turf, and it's highlighted by the Virginia Derby. In previous years, they had the Colonial Turf Cup. Those are for 3-year-olds on the turf, and it's really welcomed a pretty broad national audience. The field sizes are always among the top 5 in the country. They range in the neighborhood of 8.5 to 9 horses average. There have been plenty of days where the first 6 races on the card have been 14-horse fields. Those 14-horse fields, even though they're maiden claimers and claimers, $20,000 claimers, that kind of thing, have always been attractive because you do have full 14-horse fields. Typically, Colonial Downs has raced. They can't really race until the 1st of June. They slipped into May one year, and everybody was terrified that the turf course, the route system wasn't developed fully. And so they really typically race from the 1st of June through the middle of July, sometimes toward the end of July. They very rarely have raced in August. So it's kind of a nice meet coming off the Triple Crown Trail, where there's a lot of emphasis, of course, on the 3 Triple Crown races. And it's a good lull meet, at least nationally, between Del Mar and Saratoga.
And I agree about, the field size. People like turf racing, and as I said, I think our viewers have liked the Bet Colonial. I enjoy it, so it certainly will be missed, and I wanted to bring it up. Will be missed if things work out the way it seems like, unfortunately. But again, we want to get a little update on that. Why don't you give us a little background on what started this current dispute?
Well, how long is your radio show? The dispute really started at the end of last year. Colonial Downs, last year, they tried to raise average daily purses. Since 2008, the handle had dropped, the attendance had dropped, and they thought that maybe if they shortened the meet to 25 days, they could get their average daily handle up above 200,000, which seems to be a magic number. It used to be what I called the John Mooney standard when he's now the general manager at Delaware Park, but when he was here in Virginia, he always emphasized that the average daily purses had to be above 200,000, or nobody would make the effort to shift down the Colonial Downs. So they did that. The attendance wasn't all that great. The handle wasn't. There were a couple other things that they tried to tinker with, and basically handle and attendance dropped 25%. So the horsemen didn't like the idea of a 5-week meet. Popular trainers like Kathleen O'Connell, who used to bring up some 70 to 80 horses from Florida, didn't want to ship up for just a 5-week meet. And so the field sizes were hurting a little bit, and the national interest. They tried some night racing, and that didn't really pan out, not only from an attendance standpoint, but also from the national off-track wagering. And so Colonial proposed a 12, came back this year and said we wanted a 12-day meet highlighted by a super meet, and they basically said they wanted to run a boutique meet. The horsemen said no. In order for our livelihood, in order to attract horsemen to come up, we need 32 days of racing. Back in December, the commission basically, with a couple of new commissioners back on board, D.G. Van Cleef back on the commission, who used to run the Breeders' Cup here. He used to run the Breeders' Cup. He's on the commission here in Virginia. They said, let's run 25 days just like last year, and we'll put a blue ribbon committee together to look at some of the long-term vision that we need to have for racing in Virginia. The horsemen, it could have ended right there. The horsemen, though, decided that they had given on a number of joint ventures that they had with Colonial Downs, such as Easy Horseplay, such as their commissions on what they receive on wagers that had been used for off-track betting expansion. And the horsemen said, no, we're not going to accept this 25-day meet. And then kind of an odd series of weather events led toward some commission issues where the commission had like 3 meetings scheduled in January and they were all snowed out. So finally, without a contract in place, the horsemen said that they were going to pull the thoroughbred signal, and they started to play hardball. They finally acquiesced in a number of different ways. They agreed to a number of compromises, but at that point, Colonial felt like they had been hurt in the pocketbook through the banning of signals through the OTBs, and so they decided to not agree to that situation, and that's kind of the situation we've been in for the last 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months. There was a mediation effort that failed miserably. The horsemen have been trying to come up with some kind of meet. They actually agreed to 5-5s after all, and it just didn't pan out.
And at some point, Colonial Downs was calling for a new horsemen's group to step forward. Was that ever an option? I mean, were the horsemen split in a way that could have happened?
No, it actually backfired with Colonial Downs. They hired Mark Dean to this horsemen's group, and through a number of different press releases, they were trying to say that they basically tried to solicit horsemen to work with them. He is now actually doing publicity with the racetrack, public relations, and that's not going over very well either because a lot of horsemen felt like he had basically crossed a picket line, and now he's doing public relations for Colonial Downs. So there's one. They had a meeting scheduled this week for Monday. They could not come to an agreement. I know there was a lot of optimism on Monday morning, but through a couple of deferrals that happened on that day, nothing surfaced. And in fact, there was a lot of backsliding. They tentatively scheduled a meeting for today, which was canceled yesterday. There is going to be one last-ditch effort actually here in about 15 minutes where the two parties are going to get together and try and save some kind of Colonial Downs meet for this summer or maybe even the fall. But in the long term, Colonial, the big picture is Colonial has tried, and it needed to be done in the early days because there were some expenditures that were running rampant at Colonial Downs. They did a pretty good job over about a half decade of cutting some of these unnecessary expenses and making the track operate better, but they've never really gotten out of that mode. And they continue to look at things like running the harness meet, thoroughbred meet simultaneously so that they don't need to. One of the ideas has been to run a shipping meet only, which is problematic because Colonial Downs is off the beaten path horse racing wise. And so they've tried to continue to cut costs, and they really never had a means of expanding revenue. They don't really look at the income side of the picture enough, even though the easy horseplay here in Virginia has been very successful.
And is there a drop-dead date for a decision to be made? Now you're saying that maybe they would consider a fall meet too, but is there a date that folks are looking at when things really have to be resolved by? Because, of course, trainers have to make plans of where to ship their horses and whatnot.
Well, one of the thoughts, the Colonial Downs meet that you and I know, that the national audience knows, is going to have a hard time existing in the future. For this year, it's practically done. The steeplechase meets here in Virginia have been enormously successful. It's really it's really hard to fathom. On Kentucky Derby Day up at the Gold Cup, the Virginia State Police estimate that they had 75,000 fans at the Gold Cup. I mean, that's approaching Black-Eyed Susan. I mean, you know, it's really crazy how these fans come out for these steeplechase. And so they're talking about some sort of grassroots meet. You know, what you might expect is a ship-in meet Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 7 weekends, maybe going from the 4th of July to the end of August, which does put it into the heat, and running some sort of low-end racing meet, maybe with a centered around a high-end weekend where you would have the Virginia Derby and, you know, basically about $1 million, $2 million of stakes racing on a particular weekend. That's kind of what is being discussed now. And so as a drop-dead date, yeah, I mean, I think we're almost past that date. You know, the commission has drawn a line in the sand several times, and that line has been crossed several times. But, you know, I think if it doesn't happen in the next week or so, that's probably going to be it.
All right. And then what would that, if they don't race this year, and I'm looking at the article you wrote on the racingbiz.com where you quoted the commission chairman, Sergeant Reynolds. The quote is actually, racing for 2014 is bleak, and if we don't have racing in 2014, the future of Virginia horse racing is bleak. I mean, is it that dire? If there's no meet this year, does that kind of, is that a signal that things are not looking good in the future as well?
Well, the shame in all this is that there had to be some evolution in Virginia because of the way things have been going since 2008, but I don't know why they had to dismantle the meet this year to make that work. You know, they shouldn't have just sort of thrown this meet to the wind. It's going to probably resemble for a while the situation that existed when Colonial Downs got started, which was a lot of appeals over the awarding of the license and a lot of legal maneuvering. And I think that's a period we're going to be entering here for about the next year or so. So what the meet might look like in 2015 or 2016, you know, who knows? Who knows? But it has dug such a... Maryland is kind of in a situation where, you know, we bring in a lot of people down south from Maryland, the track announcer, the grooms, the starting gate crew. You know, all those people rely on this meet to fill that summer hole. Maryland's in a position now where they can race in the summer. You know, they could probably, with that new turf course at Laurel, you know, they can run a Colonial Downs style meet. And so, you know, they're going to react to this. So how, you know, has Dave Brodman called his last race at Colonial Downs? I certainly hope not, because he's a great announcer. But, you know, Maryland's going to have to react to this, and how they react will, you know, have a big impact on what Colonial Downs looks like in the future.
All right. Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed because, again, I think I enjoy the product. I think a lot of folks do, too. Nick, we appreciate the visit. And, again, I'll remind people they can find Nick's work on the racingbiz.com. Nick, thanks for the visit. We'll catch up with you again.
Yeah, sure. Looking forward to Belmont Stakes. That's going to be a great weekend.
Absolutely. Everybody's looking forward to that. That is the bright spot in horse racing right now. We'll make the most of it. Thanks again, Nick.
Thank you, Seth.
Nick Hahn from the Racing Biz. We'll take one very quick break, and I'll come back and say goodbye. So right after this break, we'll wrap it up.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Just time to wrap things up for the Thursday edition. I'd like to thank John DeSilva of RacingWithBruno.com and Nick Hahn from TheRacingBiz.com. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little bit earlier, it was the Handicappers Report. Jeff Carl and I looked at Churchill Downs and Belmont. Enjoy the racing this afternoon. Cash a few tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.